Good morning, boys and girls. Well, it is an absolutely crummy day outside. Have you stuck your nose out the door? It's cold, it's wet, it's just not spring-like at all out there. And we're about to finish our book, and I hope Poppy finds someplace warm to go because it is cold out. Remember what happened yesterday? It was Poppy's lucky day. I mean, what could have been better than Mr. Okax running smack dab into the salt block, and that was the end of him. And then it knocked the salt block into pieces all over the ground, so Poppy will be able to get salt block to her good friend Erith. Chapter 19, The Return. For a long time, Poppy gazed at the lifeless body of Mr. Okax. She thought she should be feeling triumphant joy. Plain gladness would have been good enough. Somewhere she did feel pride, but small as she was, it was buried deep. What Poppy felt was weariness, as if she had aged 4 seasons over the last hour. She felt old. Before her on the grass lay one of Mr. Okax's feathers. Poppy had really never looked at an owl's feather. This one was quite lovely. It was a molted brown color with a white tuft on top, soft as any baby's breath. She picked it up. In the breeze, the veins stirred slightly. With a sigh, Poppy slipped the feather into her sash. Then she turned and looked at the cornfield. At first, what she thought was that she most desired to lie down and sleep. It was growing dark, but a moment's thought made her realize sleep was impossible. What she needed to do was tell someone about her discoveries and what had happened. She crossed the dirt road and moved along the edge of the forest. There was enough of the porcupine's lingering scent for Poppy to find the trail that Erith had used to go from his home to the field. For once, and it made her smile wanly, she was grateful for the old fellow's stink. Plunging directly into Dimwood Forest, Poppy traveled slowly, methodically, taking the time for proper precautions. Now and again she paused to absorb the lush view. The way moonlight filtered through the fragrant air, a very tall tree, a particularly beautiful fern, a bush laden with blackberries as big as her head. When Poppy reached Erith's log, she paused long enough to contemplate. Mr. Okax's now abandoned snag. Who, she wondered, would live in it now? Erith, she called into the log from the entryway. Are you home, Erith? In response, there was some scratching and snorting deep within. That you, Erith? Who the snail squirt is that? Came the growled reply. Can't a creature have any privacy around here? Beat it, unless you want to eat a quill sandwich. Erith, it's me, Poppy. Who? Don't you remember? Poppy. Poppy, came the echo, with more enthusiasm than before. A great rattling and shuffling could be heard. Then Erith's grisly fat face loomed out of the darkness. That really you, girl? Where is it? Where's what? The salt. Didn't you bring it? Erith, It's about Mr. Ocax. I don't give a flea's flick about that jerk of an owl. Where's the salt you promised me? It's there, by Newhouse, all broken up on the ground. On the ground? Edith shrieked. What's it doing there? Edith, I couldn't carry it. And besides, on the ground, great snail swaggle, it'll melt to nothing. The porcupine came barreling by so fast, Poppy had to leap aside. The next moment, he was all but running down the trail. Can I sleep here? Poppy called after him. Can't stop to talk, Edith called back, and indeed, he was gone. Poppy stepped into the log, lay down, and was asleep at once. She slept until the sun was high. When she woke, Edith had not yet returned, so she went out, found some seeds, ate them, returned to the log, and slept again until dusk. This time when she woke, Edith was there. He was chewing, slobbering on a chunk of salt. Hello, Poppy said. Edith didn't even look up. Delicious. Best salt I ever had. He licked his lips. Awesome. Then you got some of it? Some of it? All of it. I'm just about ossified. This is the last bit. It was all pure, wonderful salt. Absolutely delicious, amazing, divine. Edith? What's that? Did you see Mr. Ocax? Oh yeah, him, dead. What happened? Poppy told him. The porcupine, though busy with the salt, slowed his slobbering to listen. When Poppy finished her story, she asked Edith, what do you think? Edith shook his head. Never thought I'd appreciate that owl's hard head. But if what you say is true, it is. Well, I'm grateful he broke up the salt lick. Really, Poppy, it's incredible stuff. Want some? I mean, a small taste? Edith? What's that? I'm going home now. May I come back and visit? Sure, Poppy, sure. Any time, and bring some salt. I'm going now. Poppy, what? You're the salt of the earth. Poppy crossed Glitter Creek by using the bridge. The rest of the way she traveled by the side of the tar road. By the time she reached Gray House, it was late. The first thing she noticed was that the red flag was flying. She climbed the porch steps slowly. Instead of going inside, she took a peek. The entire family was gathered in the front parlor. Longworth stood atop the old straw hat, apparently in the middle of a speech. And so, dear friends, we will have to break up the family. Yes, disperse, go our separate ways, forge on our own. There is insufficient food here for us. But first I wish to engage in a brief memorial tribute to our full family, which, Poppy? Is that you, Poppy? She stepped inside. Alma started to stir. Poppy gazed at them evenly. Then she pulled the feather, Mr. Ocax's feather, from her sash and held it aloft for all to see. Mr. Ocax is dead, she said solemnly. And I tell you, that new house is right next to a big field of corn that has enough to feed all of us forever and ever. Ah, Poppy, Lungwort cried triumphantly. Didn't I say that if you listened to my advice, all would be well? And here's Lungwort on top of the hat talking to the family. Chapter 20, A New Beginning. Almost 13 full moons to the night since Mr. Ocax killed Ragweed. Poppy and her husband, Rye, how they met and married is another story, stood on Bannock Hill with their litter of 11 young mice. They had formed a circle around a small hazelnut tree. Looking on beneath a golden full moon was Erith the porcupine. This tree, Poppy was saying to her rather restless children, was planted after a fashion by my late and dear friend Ragweed. I can't be sure that it was he who dropped the seed nut from which this tree has grown, but I would like to think so. Though it is rather frail now, someday this tree will be mighty. I want to affix this. Here she held up a small earring to a high branch, so as the tree grows, it will glitter in the sky for us all to see. Hey, does Ma love making long speeches, or does she? Whispered one of the litters to one of her brothers. And here on Bannock Hill, Poppy went on, once forbidden to us, though we too live in Dimwood Forest, we shall have our dancing place. It doesn't matter how you dance, my children, slow or fast, by jumps or steps. As long as you are free to dance in the open air by the light of the moon, all will be well. Now, Erith, if you please. Old Erith, murmuring mouse muck under his breath, gave a grunt, but began to shake and rattle his quills until he settled into a steady beat. Then the 11 young glitter mice began to dance their own way with jiggles and jumps and leaps and lops. As for Poppy and Rye, they spun round and around in a stately waltz, dancing by the light of the moon and the earring which glittered high on the hazelnut tree. The end. So this really had a happy ending for the mice. And it gives us a little bit of beginning to our next book. Two brave mice have come together for one daring adventure in Poppy and Rye, the third book of the Poppy stories. So can't get the book right now to show you the front cover because it is holding up the camera. So when we start tomorrow, we'll learn about Poppy and how she met Rye. Does anybody remember who Rye is? Because we talked about Rye one time, I believe, a long time ago. And it was when Ragweed was leaving home. Not sure, but I think, you guys think about it. See if you can remember who Rye was, and I'll just make a prediction and see if I remember who Rye is. And tomorrow we will start our third book in the Poppy series. Have a good